Welcome to From the Ground Up, where I will be diving into the stories of our leaders and change makers who are making a difference every day in their communities. And I'm your host, Rashana Carmen. And today's guest is a man who embodies service, strength, and deep compassion. He's fought battles overseas and at home. He's dedicated his life to serving and helping veterans heal from trauma that doesn't always leave a scar. Thank you so much, Dr. Wallace Allen, for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and I appreciate what you're doing in helping the community and helping veterans, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to ask you, what's something that people would be surprised to know about you?
I'd say that one of my hobbies is repairing watches. Yeah, I really get into that.
Yeah.
And it just gives me like a sense of peace to do that.
So what's your favorite? What's your favorite watch?
So I have a deep blue watch. I have a couple of deep blue watches. For one, blue is my favorite color.
Yeah.
And so, but the watch is extremely fashionable and they're reliable. And so if you're ever going into ocean or diving, these are going to definitely be, not that I'm selling deep blue watches, but you're going to get the total package in a watch.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I like that. Okay. So let's get into it. Now, you have served in the Marine Corps, the National Guard,
Yes.
and you've dedicated most of your life supporting veterans and those who struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder and military sexual trauma, moral injury. Can you share, with everybody like what you do and why this work is important to you?
So now I grew up in a house of 9. My father, Wallace Allen, and of course my mother, Mary Allen. But I grew up in the 60s, or I was born in 65, so late 60s and 70s. And so my dad was a World War II veteran, and he had a lot of different things going on. As an African-American man growing up in the 60s, he had that kind of thing going on, but he was also a World War II veteran. And there were times when Dad would just go berserk.
Yeah.
Storms, when different things was going on, like with the assassination of Martin Luther King. And so there were times when Dad would just really have a lot of rage, which caused throughout the family that rage syndrome. And I didn't really understand it, being the youngest of 9. And so when I became 30, Dad and I talked, and I had to better understand him. By that time, he was a deacon in the church. He was in his early 70s. And I had become a youth minister.
Okay.
And so we both were walking with God. And so Dad used to meditate a lot. And so as I got to know my dad, really got to know him and getting close to him, he came down he had a stroke. Oh. And so he was in a nonverbal state. And so he died. And I was in the Marine Corps. And that really the grief from that just kind of wrecked my world a little bit. And so what I did is as I prayed and I asked God, how can I use my pain and my grief to care for veterans, because there were a lot of veterans in my family, my brother, my sister, two brothers and 2 sisters. And at the time I was in ministry, and it just shifted my worldview, my worldview. And so from that point on, I dedicated myself, my education, my life pretty much, to providing pastoral care for people who struggle with PTSD and trauma.
So you've spent, 20 years in service, including, I'm gonna go back to that. I kind of want you to take us back a little bit further to Roxborough, North Carolina, to kind of where it started.
All right. When I grew up in Roxborough, it was in the mid 60s, early 70s. And so even though I grew up in an integrated school, and this is elementary school, and so it was primarily Black in a Black neighborhood, but I'll never forget Charles. Yeah. His family was from California. His dad was a pilot. Charles and I hit it off. And Charles, I'm a little Black kid, a young kid, and he's a little white kid, and we just play together. We have fun together. I go over his house, and even though his family was well off, my family was this close to the poverty line. Being a pilot, his dad and mother they were in higher economic structure. But it didn't matter for me and Charles and I. And so what ended up happening is we had a lot of different challenges, because the black kids, African American kids, my kids, and the white kids or European, however you want to talk about it, kind of didn't like our relationship, and so it was pulled.
Yeah,
it was pulled, and so I didn't really understand it, nor did he. But even in that, the racial divide in Roxborough, North Carolina, kind of pulled us away from each other. In the background was my Uncle Wallace.
Okay.
Uncle Wallace was white because when my dad was 9 years old, his dad was in prison, and Uncle Wallace's family took my dad in. And so Uncle Wallace came from Greensboro, and every year he brought me gifts specifically for me.
Yeah.
And we talked, we had good conversations. And this man is like in his 60s, an older white man coming into the hood, so much projects, and I felt like it was such a great thing every year when Uncle Wallace came, because he kind of helped me understand that God loves every person. That's right. And what that did for me is it kind of brought healing to me. And growing up in that era, regardless of what people said, I felt a deep sense of God in everybody, and my heart was for people, and I think that helped me develop a broader mindset than worldview than what was going on in Roxborough, North Carolina. And so, kind of bringing it in school, I looked at the social studies books, and I made a decision. I think it was around about 12 or 13 years old. The places that I see in the social studies books, the cultures, the setting, world like Hawaii and Korea and Okinawa, I'm like, I have got to go to those places. And so I kind of shifted my mindset as I was growing up to how would I do that? I didn't want to go to college. And so I saw the Marine Corps as the best vehicle. And besides, I was like, I've been fighting all my life. If I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna get paid to fight, and I'm gonna do it well. And I had all these people in my family who were military. I'm like, and I'm gonna do it better than them. So when I go off and when I come back, they're gonna see somebody strutting, and I'm gonna be the best in my family, and they're not gonna mess with me no more. So, bottom line, they're not gonna beat me up like they've been doing. And so those were the pieces that I needed to give my life the determination to never quit and to face every challenge as an opportunity to excel.
So, I love that. Yeah. And I want to ask you, because I know you spent some 20 years and you did spend some time overseas in Iraq. Right. So what I want to ask you is, what impact do you think those experiences had on how you care for veterans today?
Okay, so without going too in depth of what our unit did, the fact that I was called up and I had a little bit of a challenge with that. I was already in ministry, and a part of me resisted the assignment because it kind of felt like to me that I was being forced to do something or orders that go against my moral compass. And I didn't know at the time it was a moral injury. But when I was over there, a lot of the assignments we had, I felt like were being like oppressing of people that didn't really have a lot to do with what happened in the United States. And I say that because I was looking through then as a 38-year-old, 40-year-old mature man and seeing a lot of different things that conflicted with me, where I stood. But when I went on missions, it drew me closer to turn inward to God. And a couple of assignments that we went on were near death. And without telling too many of the details, but near-death assignments pushed me into God even more, seeing how God's hand miraculously saved us, especially one time. Especially one time. But what did it for me is it helped me as a minister really value the fact that I wasn't the chaplain per se, but there were people who came to talk to me and they could unpack and felt safe with me. And so when I went into pastoral care training and the pastor field ministry, knowing that I was a safe container for people to unpack, kind of again gave me a spiritual formation that spoke to my my growing up, my childhood, and how it kind of helped me see that God was grooming me and putting me in this position that I pretty much had been in
Right.
because of my world experiences in my combat time. I didn't really, matter of fact, when we got on the plane going to Iraq, I had my Bible and people like,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm
Listen.
reading my Bible because I'm
Come
like,
on.
Lord, just please guide me
Please.
in whatever, because, you know, King David was in a lot of combat. And so just having that mindset and seeing the spirituality in what I was doing, knowing that faith, God's hand of faith and God's presence was with me. And God ended up using every single experience as I was talking to veterans and giving veterans that place, that unjudgmental, non-anxious space, not just open to hear without judgment. And I believe that made a world of difference in every encounter.
That's good. Yeah. And I think that's so important, because sometimes I feel like as veterans, I can only speak from myself and experience. Sure. It's kind of hard to open up, especially about those types of things, is to open up and be honest and to share honestly, because you're afraid of the judgment and you're afraid of maybe these people are going to put me somewhere I don't want to be. Right. So, you know, you have to deal with that. So I think that's awesome. And I know that while you were overseas, right, you did experience an injury while you were there, right? Yes. And I know how difficult military life to civilian life can be for some veterans. Yes. It is very hard. Yes. So how did you personally navigate that shift? And what helped you find, you know, your new purpose?
That was one of the most difficult experiences I had. I'd already injured my back before I was assigned to go to OEF, OIF. I'm just to break it down like that. And I was already on Percocet, and it was switched from Oxycontin to Percocet, and I was Flexeril and a couple of other muscle relaxers and Neurontin and different medications. So then with an injured back, fighting the system, fighting my desire. I wanted to go further. I wanted to stay in. I wanted to finish up like I felt like I should have, honorably in a way, not a medical much retirement. And so when I got out into the civilian world, I went into a deep depression, a dark depression. Some of the times I didn't really want to be here. Yeah. I mean, literally considering, you know, suicide and their different things. And it was just a dark depression. However, the Lord kept opening doors for me. Yeah. I got accepted into UNC Spiritual Clinical Pastoral Education Program, Duke Pastoral Education Program. The VA decided to pay for my Master of Divinity. And so all along the way, I got confirmation that God's hand was kind of like, or the cloud of God was leading me, my direction. I believe that led me out of depression. I'm sure it led me out of depression, because when I started seeing this unfolding, and I'm like, oh my goodness, just see how powerful, and every opportunity seemed to push me in the arena that when I'm in UNC and Duke, I'm going to visit veterans. Yeah. So veterans were all along the way. And so it just came to just kind of order. The steps seemed to be just ordered. And then when I kind of rolled myself into my purpose, became my purpose and gave me true meaning, I was like, this is exactly where I need to be.
That's good.
Exactly where I need to be, without doubt, without a shadow of doubt.
So that's good. Now I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you talk a lot about invisible wounds. Yes. I would like for you to kind of discuss that, but I want to specifically speak about PTSD, military sexual trauma, or injury. Now, I would love for you to break these things down for our listeners and explain how they can, you know, affect veterans differently from physical injuries. Okay.
I think my first real encounter with PTSD was with my brother Morris. Okay. Morris was about the same height I am. He was in a dark place, dark glasses, dark clothes, Vietnam veteran, combat veteran. If you looked at Morris out on the street, you wouldn't know anything's wrong with him. Yeah. Okay. But he was battling internal wounds, deep spiritual wounds. When I was going to go to the Marine Corps and Morris and I talked.
Yeah.
He was like, I know you're trying to shoot higher and aim higher than all the rest of us, but you probably want to stay in the middle.
Okay.
You don't really want to shine too much. So I took that with me. And so what Morris was giving me was example from his experiences, but already put me in a sense of marginalizing myself. And I'm kind of bringing this into, for people that have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's something that if you look at a person like Rambo, the only way you can tell that Rambo in the movie had some issues was when he kept getting pushed by the police. Otherwise, he's walking, he's strong, his body looks good, his attractive looking physical. And many people that wrestle with traumatic injuries, military sexual trauma, moral injuries, and PTSD deal with the physiological challenges, but also the inner challenges, not just in their mind, their thinking and their will, but deeper in the core of who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And in the core where God or their higher power or their transcendence, and finding the ability to resilience to fight back again in the face of adversity, that can become wounded.
Yeah.
Through military sexual trauma, when somebody is assaulted without consent, the damages that take place don't just take place in their mind and in their body. It goes deep into the core of that person. That person may feel guilt, shame, and regret. And they may have such a rage. And not only that, the sense of not being able to forgive the person or themselves. And so it can fall into this damage on the inside, which is called soul wounds, or a moral injury, but soul wounds, and try to live out their life, or sometimes some people feel like taking their life, because some of the key components of that is self-hatred, low self-worth, inability to make sense of the world and see how the world see the world as a dark place like Morris did, distrust, unsafe. And so I experienced many of these things in my own personal life. So to connect that with ministry without trying to engage people in front of me, that helps me have empathy. And empathy is very important to me, but it's also equally important to different therapists and theories as far as helping people and coming alongside of people. And I'm talking about pastoral care world, social world. Brene Brown is one of the others that talked about the theory of being empathetic with people and creating places for people to feel like they're not just sitting across from a doctor or a therapist, but they have a connection with that therapist. And I probably went out of the way, but I'm hoping we're
gonna get back
close to it.
We're gonna get back, because that's important.
All right.
That you brought therapists up, because I know some people are afraid of therapy, especially veterans. I don't know why. Okay. I kind of do know why, but where do you think the disconnect is for veterans and really getting the help that they need?
You brought up a key element of trauma, because trauma, when it happens, is unexpected.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a surprise. And it could, even if you're expecting the enemy to come in the door, you don't know how the enemy's going to come in the door. And so it kind of snaps you. But that fear can also be when I'm getting ready to go talk to a therapist, or I'm getting ready to go talk to somebody who can potentially discredit or say it's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
And I have to unpack my story to them, and they may say it's nothing there. That fear of stepping out into that place of saying, I'm going to open myself up to somebody who, first of all, may not be, they don't even know what combat is.
Yeah.
They're a civilian, or they may be so educated in the sense of saying that they're going to analyze me. And I just don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm already hurting, and I don't want to take a chance. So, and I would go with percentages, but probably is a higher percentage in the 80s and 90s of people who do not.
Yeah.
Of the people that I work with,
Mhm.
I don't want a new therapist.
Mhm.
I want someone I can trust, somebody
Right.
that I can connect with,
Mhm.
that hears me. And again, that fear of not being heard, not just the words, but when we start dealing with the mind and the body and the spirit, a lot of times in the biopsychosocial healing system, the spiritual realm is left out, but everybody has a soul,
That's right.
a spirit that's connected with them, the individuality and the core of who that person is. And when that spirit is wounded, of course, I don't want to open up
Right.
to another therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I know that spiritual care is a big part of your work. Now, for a veteran that's struggling with their faith
Yes.
or their purpose or feeling hopeless,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and not feeling like they have a purpose of being on this earth, where do they begin that healing, that process? What would you say to them?
So the spirituality and the spiritual place within a person, the core of a person's being, is individualized. Is it's you. It's the real you. Your body is kind of like a house that encloses and protects and shields the spirit. Your mind is kind of keeps that place, the emotional. But when it comes to your health, is your body and is your responsibility.
Yeah.
So when you go in and you say, I've lost faith, it may not be that you lost faith. It may be that the conditions that you saw changed the way your faith is. Your faith, and I can use an example in a minute, but your faith may not be lost. And it's a good chance your faith and your spirit hasn't been lost. Yeah. And your purpose hasn't been lost. It's just a whole lot of crap and stuff has been thrown on it to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like running, and you haven't hit your second wind yet, and first sergeant's like, keep going. It's like, and then the first sergeant circles around the barracks or circles around where we met it, and then he takes off. It's like a psychological test that you have to that I invite you, whoever you may be, to allow the second wind, which is the pneuma, the spirit, allow the second wind of your spirit, the fighting spirit, the resilient spirit that was in you, to turn the corner and get over that psychological challenge that maybe the first sergeant that's pushing you to keep moving. A person may feel like quitting. And I had to do this personally because I told you I had a really bad depression in the dark night of the soul. But there were little nuggets along the way that I kept moving. And I'm going to share this experience, and I won't take too long with this.
Okay.
I went to the VA. I saw a doctor. I was in a dark place. And that was for my back, and I'm hurting. And I didn't know I had fibromyalgia. So my body is hurting. My spine is hurting up and down. And she says to me, she looks me directly in the eye, and she said, listen to me. I'm not going to give you any more mental health medicine to help you kill yourself. And I'm like, okay. And she was nice when she said it.
I know she wasn't. Look.
Like, who you think you're talking to? Little woman. Yeah. Like, who you think you're talking to? I'm already angry. And so I'm starting to just internally rise up. I'm like, and she looked me in my eyes. She said, I don't care if you're mad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like,
I know you were hot.
Oh my God. And she told me, no, I'm not going to give you any more medicine. And I'm thinking, well, how are you not going to give me what's helping me that really wasn't helping me?
Right.
Because I still had the pain. She said, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to authorize physical therapy for you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't want that. She said, well, and then she said what she had to say. And she said, I'm walking. I'll see you at your next appointment. That was about 45-minute drive home. And it hit me after I got out of the VA site, and I started driving, and I just felt tearful because I was like, my mama used to talk to me like that. Mm-hmm. I don't allow people to talk to me like that. And I was mad. And it hit me, and it broke through depression, it broke through anger, and it just settled right in my spirit. And I thought about that, and I said, man, that's a challenge for me. I hadn't had a challenge like that since first sergeant got in my face. When I had an assignment, like, I'm not going to formation. The colonel told me I don't have to go to formation. Sergeant, I'm a staff sergeant. I don't have to go to formation. He would drill. And you know, what happened to me, it got to the core of me
Yes.
and it broke that shell or that covering. And from that point, I made a decision because I was at the VA. My dad had died from the VA, but you know what that was? What I was dealing with was unresolved grief. I hadn't dealt with it. I hadn't dealt with the loss of my dad and some of the people that I had overseas. Back in the 80s, loss of people. I hadn't dealt with any of that stuff. And so and when I was crying all the way home, even though the words that she said, they were piercing,
Yeah.
it kind of went down like, you know, if you got to go into a walnut, you cracked it. It started breaking things I really needed, the healing that I really need. So when words pierce and that the grief is kind of slashed, like cutting through a piece of steak, and you get into the core, that can be a wonderful place to start to ask questions. What does this mean?
Yeah.
Why did her words hurt like this? And I was praying, God, I can't stay in this place. I got home, I sat on the porch out in the deep country, and I'll never forget the Lord tell me, I have a calling for you. The wind was blowing. I have a calling for you, and you're not going to stay here. And I'm like, okay, so what is it?
What is it?
You know, what is it?
What now?
And I never forget the
Yes.
Lord reminded me of my purpose that hadn't been lost. And I had already been a volunteer chaplain, and it just kept coming up in my mind. This is where the Lord, so as the Lord was speaking to me, healing was taking place. And that's when the door started opening for me to get the educational opportunities that I had. And so, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
With your faith here and just in general, what do you say to the veterans that are like, okay, Pastor, I hear you. Okay, I hear you, but I don't feel like God is anywhere around. You can't make me believe God is anywhere around because of the things that I'm dealing with up here. I feel crazy. I can't sleep at night. I'm struggling. I'm lashing out with my family. You know, I'm angry. What do you mean God is with me in these moments? I don't feel God with me. What would you say to those people?
What I would do as a chaplain is I would invite you to some time to talk with me and unpack those feelings and emotion, and more so to talk, just let some of that out of your duffel bag. Not going to judge you. Now, this was my practice as a board certified chaplain in the systems that I work within. I'm going to take the time that's needed with you. I'm not going to rush you to give me anything.
Yeah.
So over some sessions of you unpacking the feelings, the thoughts, I'm not going to tell you that, wait, hold up a second. I'm not going to say this. we role playing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this.
Right.
Well, what do you mean you lost your faith? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more about that. Just like you interviewing, I'm going to invite you to that space where you feel safe. Yeah. And the difference is, it's sincere. I'm not trying to change you. You may not, some people don't ever come out of that place. But I'll give you an example, a case I was working with a veteran. The entire center, he went through every social worker, every psychologist, every psychiatrist, and everybody in the center was about ready to throw him, get out of here. You are a 3-time combat veteran. You've been destroying, chewing up our people, our staff. We're trying to get rid of you. And the one therapist that had somewhat of a relationship with him was like, brother, man, I got one last shot for you.
Just one.
Yeah. I would like for you to talk to our chaplain. Yeah. And when I talked to the chaplain, so the veteran was a Marine, and he said, Chaps, the only reason why I'm giving you a shot is because I know that you were a Marine. He told me, the therapist told me that. So I used that opportunity to connect. I didn't come in the door saying, oorah, oorah. Right. I came in listening to what he said. It was basically a little crack in the door where it was safe for him to talk to me. And he told me, I'm going to test you. I'm testing you. And he cussed and he did all of those things. You know what? I was like, that's not bothering me. Sometimes I curse. I drink, sometimes I drink. It just depends. I'm human, and the Bible didn't say I can't drink. And I didn't say that to him. I was just basically in a place where we could get on somewhat of a level that was safe. And so if you can find a person, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a pastor, But if there's a chaplain who's been trained or a pastor who's been trained and that can invite you to a safe place where you feel like you can unpack that, because the bottom line is until a person can unpack the anger, the loss of faith, other emotional stuff, the inner pains, until they can start opening it up to somebody safe, they're going to carry that, and it's going to re-trigger, and it's going to re-traumatize, and it's going to build, and that's not what we want.
Yeah.
So having a safe place. And a plug for the VA is that you may have to work to get a chaplain consult, but all of our chaplains have to go through clinical pastoral education, CPE, have to go through a board certification process, which is 1,000 hours after you've done 1,600 hours of clinical pastoral education for units. And in that training, our chaplains learn how to invite traumatized people in general, everybody, people, to a safe place where they can see that we're coming alongside with them and we're partnering with them, not trying to carry it, is yours, but to walk alongside of you, come alongside of you, and let you see that there are people who are not going to judge you or not going to try to make you do anything, but invite you to take baby steps and get you to a place where you can see that even though it may feel like God is not there, or the God, or whatever God, because spirituality invites you to, if the light is, that's who you want your God to be, the light, okay, I'm not judging you, but a higher power and the transcendence that goes into the dark recesses of a person's soul, whatever that may be for you, the God of your understanding, that gives you hope, that whatever it may be. And so my role as chaplain is that's safe too. You don't have to worry about me trying to crush whatever it is, art is my whatever. You want to explore that with me? I'm listening to you, because I'm not judging you in any state. And that's where, going back to 1992, when I met our chaplain Cordova in the Marine Corps, he come through weekly and just sit down for a few seconds and say, "How you doing today, Alan? How things going?" I'm like, "What you want, chaplain? I ain't got time for this." And you know what I loved about Chaplain Cordova is his invitational approach. And he would come out. I got to tell this. He would come out, Navy guy, when he first got there, he looked like he was overweight. And he'd come out and he'd try to run in formation with us, and we running in formation, booking. And he'd come out and he's trying his best and he's struggling. But you know what he's showing us? He's showing us that he's willing to come down to, not so much come down, but to try to come up to where we are, and to risk himself and it risk being human to be with us. And I believe that's when it can be grandma or whoever that shows you the sense of humanity. Because I didn't mention that, but how many times as a veteran or a person who's been traumatized feel like they lost their sense of humanity, and that was taken to, they just totally violated me as a person or whatever. But having a safe place for somebody to say, I see your humanity, and I see your brokenness, and I'm not trying to tell you God gonna fix it and this and that. I'm just inviting you to a place where you're free to just be free. And in time, healing will come, and healing doesn't necessarily have to mean for everybody that they're going to go to church or that they're going to go to the chapel. It just may be that they're not in a broken place where they feel like taking baby steps toward whatever purpose looks like or whatever meaning looks like to them, because it is your journey.
That's good. Now, in that, you mentioned triggers. Now, for someone that may not know what that is, could you let the viewers know what triggers mean?
Wow, triggers are so interesting. So for a person that is experiencing trauma or have experienced a trauma in their life, trauma, again, that which is uncontrollable that happened, triggers are when an event, or let's just say an event, unplanned. It could be a smell, it could be a sound, it could be a thought, it could be a song, it could be a door opening unexpectedly that causes a person to cycle back into either the stages of trauma. It could cause a person to relive a traumatic experience. It could cause a person to go back into that cycle of depression where they were. And triggers are so powerful because they can seem like they're so insignificant in your life. You can see a person and they can remind you of somebody that in your past that something happened to that person or a loss, and it's like, oh my goodness. And it also depends on your individual challenge. And triggers have such power that they could set a person back because the person may feel like I've been doing such a good job for the last 10 years, even with alcohol and substance use. I've been clean for 30 years. And I just walked by this bar and the smell just got me. Or I was in somebody's house and they lit up, and before I knew it, because the trigger just caused re-experience, reawakening of whatever the trauma was. Super powerful. Super powerful.
Wow.
Oh, let me say one more thing on
please.
that. So I have in my possession, for people that want to identify traumas, I have in my possession, I'm willing to share these for free of charge. For anybody that wants to understand what triggers are, I have a handout that I've been working on. I think if you're not doing the healing work, inner healing work, spiritual healing work, or working with a therapist, understanding what's causing you to react out or relive or have these intrusive thoughts. Even if you learn what a trigger is, you can go online and put up what a trigger is and pull it up and try to get an awareness of it, because even that is your journey. And however you start working the healing process, even taking that initiative to say, when a person is triggered, my anxiety goes up, and I've been triggered over the weekend doing that program triggered me. You probably saw that.
We saw it.
And it takes time for me to calm down, but I know what my trigger is, and I know how to calm down from that trigger, because I could be walking through the house and it's like, why are you mad now? And if I didn't really think about it and have time for self-assessment and self-awareness and process each day and do a self-evaluation, as my therapist tells me all the time, do a self-evaluation, do a self-assessment. I'm like, oh my goodness, the presentation that I did triggered me. It was something that happened that triggered me. And for me, that day, it was my computer my raw computer, my iMac.
The mouse.
The mouse stuck. I had to have my mouse with me, and it stuck. And I was like, I'm moving it because I'm in a presentation, live presentation. And I got angry. I'm like, oh my goodness. And internally, I'm doing my mantras. Mantras are amazing. And we did mantras all the time in the Marine Corps, but I didn't know, different mantras like God is with me, or whatever that you speak out of your mouth as an affirmation to say, okay, it's going to be okay. Or, the grass going to da, whatever that makes you calm back down some. And so I've been practicing those.
That's good.
And I'm calming down. And so, yeah.
I got to see it live in person.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I saw.
Oh my God. Yeah. I hate
I saw the trigger.
hate to be that, right? I hate to be in that place.
But you worked through it.
Oh my God.
Then you worked through it. And
you can finish if you want to. I mean, because it's real. It was real. Right?
It was a real life thing that you worked through, that we visually saw what you were speaking about. Yeah. I thought that was a great example of how to work through it.
And so that's just how, and I've been working now for 8 years. So before that, in our stories, there's a before, after, and doing. And I would say, if you talk to my therapist would tell you that I have come a long way. Yeah. And I still have a long way to go, because the work that we are doing, when we're doing inner healing work and working with our therapists and working with whoever helps you find meaning and peace in life, the work that we're doing, if you figure out how many years you may have gone without therapy since your trauma, and it can go all the way back to childhood. Yes. How many years you worked on your without, or you live without any therapy or help, and now you start to get into a place where you're going to start working on it. It's almost like a person has to make a real investment
Yes.
in their own healing, and it's going to take time, and parts of a person may never truly get healed to the state that you think you ought to be, because I thought I should have been better than that. I'm like, I'm good today. I'm in a great place. I'm
Yes.
prayed up. I'm
Right.
working. I'm Dr. Allen today, and I'm doing, and then out of the blue.
Yep.
And so it's okay, allowing myself to say, I'm still working. I'm still a work in progress.
Yes.
Boom, there it is. I'm still a work in progress, regardless of how much education or how much experience. I have to be on guard, and my therapist would tell you. We have this talk about every other month.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me, are you prepared? Were you prepared when you went into that event? Were you prepared? Did you do your assessment that morning? I'm like, oh, no, I was rushing.
Gotcha.
I was rushing, and that triggered me. And the outcome could be good or bad, depending on my breathing technique.
Yes.
And I could bring it in by doing my breathing, and we can have it cool, or I could keep letting it go, which is what I don't want to do. So we could talk about some techniques later.
Okay, I would love to do that.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing, which I think is important for people, because sometimes I think we can get a little discouraged, like you said, is it's a process every day.
Yeah.
Like, don't beat yourself up because you're not where like you said, where you feel like you should be. You might not even realize how much you're growing.
That's
so
right.
you just gotta have a little bit of grace for yourself.
And to hear you say what I was saying back to me was important too, because the shame the shame pieces was some of the things I deal with. Moral injury, and I haven't talked a lot about moral injury, is when a person has orders, and those are legal orders, lawful orders, and they have to execute orders or regulations that go against faith system or belief system or moral compass. Let's say moral compass. And when they have to go against, follow orders that contradict or come against their moral compass or moral conscience, it can cause some reactions, because, and it depends on what the orders are. But let's just go into a couple examples. You're in charge, and you get an order to take your squad to go there and to do this, and the person has a lawful order is going against your belief system. Yeah. Thou shalt not kill is one good example. That's one of the 10 commandments. And when you have a lawful order, but you got to go and execute the order, and it's like you follow the order, you do what you have to do, and then when you come back from the mission, and a person is sitting there, and their conscience comes up, and it's like, oh my God. And then the person may be like, God hates me now, or God, I lost myself in the war because I had to repeat it the next day and the ongoing for the remainder of the tour or whatever. And then when you get out of that place, a person gets out of that place and they're back home or in another safe environment, they start judging themselves. Mm-hmm. And that self-judgment could cause a person to feel unworthy of forgiveness from God, and then it could cause a cycle of emotions. But the emotions that and the dynamics that really take place in moral injury are shame. I had to do something that I really hated like to do, and now I don't want nobody to know that. Regret, again, I wish I hadn't done it. And then, so shame, regret, and guilt. Mm. And the guilt is like, man, am I going to be okay with God now? Wow. The depth of those three pillars, emotional pillars, and they are spiritual pillars that goes down into a person's life core. You're talking about trying to climb up that ladder. And so when shame happens, it's like that fight is just so prevalent in a person's life. It's almost like, why am I ashamed? Because my MacBook wouldn't work. Right, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal to me. And so that's another piece of just saying with moral injury, people can't see it because they don't know. Doctors don't even know. It just started coming out in 2009. So many doctors and educators are getting, doctors, scientists, social workers are getting educated to moral injury. And the chaplain or spiritual provider is primarily one that deal with moral injury because moral injury is a spiritual wound.
Yeah.
So I think I got it. Did I get close to that?
Yeah, that was good.
All right.
That was real good. And before we get into techniques and resources and stuff like that, I wanted to ask you something. This is selfish, one of my questions.
Sure.
So I know as a pastor and as a mental health advocate, right? How can faith leaders better support veterans? I mean, just people dealing with mental health challenges in general in their congregations and push for better care in their communities. Like how can we do better in that area?
Okay, that's powerful because when I first got diagnosed with a mental illness, I was associate pastor in the church and I'd been preaching for about 10 years. I didn't know I had OCD. And I didn't know it was showing up in my ministry and preaching.
Was it?
And so the pastor that I work with says from the pulpit, some of us, and this is in church on the Sunday morning service, he says, some of us around here act like we have OCD.
Oh, wow.
And kind of scanning. Maybe he wasn't talking about me. I was sitting in the pulpit, but that hurt really bad.
Yeah.
Because the church laughed.
Yeah.
Majority of people in the church laughed. I was like, I felt so much shame.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you felt that way, why didn't you address me personally? But because I took it very personal.
Come on.
And then, I was at UNC, University of North Carolina, and I was working in the neuroscience hospital, which mental health falls under neuroscience. And mental health, all of that, just the whole psychological help. And so what I made the decision to do is because he could have been talking about daddy. He could have been talking about my brothers and sisters. I started doing research and I found out that 13 to 15% of the people in the church, congregants, have some form of mental illness. And so that became one, I was pissed. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yep.
I'm a pastor, I'm pissed, and I'm thinking, we're not going to fight.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. But what I'm going to do is this, while I'm going through this program at UNC as a resident in clinical pastor education, I'm going to give myself to that purpose, which gave me another meaning, another reason to keep pushing to help people in church.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was a deacon in church. My brothers and sisters, we kind of grew up in church. And that's one of the deepest wounds is when a person go to church and they get hurt. And so going back to that, as pastors, it's our responsibility as a pastor and an under shepherd to minister to God's flock. They're not, if I'm the senior pastor, lead pastor, they're not my flock, God's flock. And so I need to educate myself, first of all, is my responsibility, on how to minister to who's showing up. Now, it's even more important nowadays because it's a global world. People on Facebook Live, everybody's showing up. Yeah. And so it's my responsibility to try to understand what the people that I minister to need. And it's important for me to train my staff once I get the training. It's important for me to train the body in the church that I attend. Yeah. Because the last thing we want is somebody to come into our churches that is struggling with any type of mental illness, any type of trauma, to come in and feel judged or be crushed or stabbed, just get the knife and just start cutting people. And we just should not treat people that way. We should find a way. How do we do that? Have mental health workshops. Invite social workers from the VA or another agency. Invite them into the church. Yeah. People say, we know that Jesus can heal everything. We know that Jesus healed the demoniac. But before that person got there, they had talked to social workers or whoever in the community, and that didn't help. Yeah. maybe if we combined our forces
Mm.
and invite the social worker, because there are saved social workers, we know this. Invite that agency, or if it's already in our church, use the ones in our church and invite them to have either. Gateway's done a great job with that. When we did the PTSD healing with PTSD,
Yes.
spiritual healing for people with PTSD. I think we did the junk in the trunk one.
Yes.
We dealt with PTSD, grief, and more. That was so much fun. I learned so much about myself.
Yes.
And so the process of healing, Scripture says that we're one body, and we're one body. Let's just go like that. And we're members of one body, and it gave the image of a hand and a body, and we're saying that. So if we're all members of one body, we need each other.
That's right.
And we should have to bear each other's
That's
load.
right.
And so if you're hurting,
That's right.
I'm hurting. And when the church can collaborate and co-partner and do joint events with the agency within its community, you may go so far if you don't have a social worker in your church, that one that you can trust and you can build relationships with, not even just a social worker, maybe a psychologist, maybe a psychiatrist, that you can trust to take care of God's people in a fitting way. And if you can't find one, that you still may want to just have somebody you can make referrals to.
That's right.
Because that's going to be critically important too. The last thing you want is when somebody in your churches deal with suicidal ideation because they don't feel worthy to live, because they have more injury, because they had I work with snipers, and snipers is a special category because anybody that know what a sniper does, their eye is seeing around as it strikes the person and the damage of what it does. And the eye is like the gateway or the center to the soul. So that trigger pull, seeing it like an American sniper, it just goes directly. Not only does it captures the images and send it back electronically. Oh, that's probably top secret. I shouldn't be saying that.
Hey, listen.
But it is what it is.
But I know what you're talking about.
And listen, even that right there, right? A top secret clearance with sensitive compartmental information. Well, you seeing that now in the movies and on TikTok, that top secret clearance and that information data going directly back to where it needs to go to. Okay. I can't talk to just anybody. I can't come in and say, hey, Pastor, man, let me tell you what happened.
Come on.
When I was overseas, man,
do it.
I can't just come back and talk to anybody, right? That violates the contract with the government. It also can cause me to go to jail. This out there.
We don't need that.
But the pieces of that, I can only open up to certain people.
That's right.
Pastors need to know that too. So if you're coming in and I'm a pastor and I don't know, you might want to say, Pastor, I want to talk with you. However, there are things I can't talk with you about. You talk to me about anything.
No.
Oh no.
Absolutely not.
And that's another key that I believe in my life. I had a top secret clearance back in the 90s, now 80s. And so when that veteran that was tearing up the clinic and just berating therapists, because therapists like, you got to unpack and like, I can't even talk to you because you don't have a clearance.
You don't have a clearance.
Which is a barrier. I can't talk to my wife. My wife don't have a clearance. Nobody that I know has a clearance. And so then that kind of pushes a person back to isolation. So that's something that it would be wise for therapists and doctors to understand, that the person can't tell you, patient can't tell you information that would cause that person to feel like, if I tell you, I got to kill you, that's going to trigger that, further trigger that person. And in the military, we said that a lot, didn't we? Many of us.
A lot.
And it was true. I mean, you think I'm playing with y'all back in the day as a corporal? You think I'm playing with you?
No.
Because if I'm serious, if I tell you, if I point it, I mean, there's no coming back. So in relationships with anybody, we take that oath serious. And so that's just how serious it is, what we're talking about, the level that we're on. Okay, so if a person get a top secret clearance, sensitive clearance, secret clearance, or any clearance, you cannot divulge information. And so that's just how deep the wounds are within us, our spirits. And so Yeah, it's pretty deep.
That's deep.
It's pretty deep. The work that pastors do, social workers, but pastors, is spiritual work. This is not. You talking about in an unseen realm.
Come on.
I'm not just preaching words from the pulpit so that people can get happy, or I can make a dime off, or make $1 off, or it burns me up. I have a problem with pastors who go into ministry to make a great name, and I've seen this in seminary a lot. So you telling me, as an instructor, that you want to go into ministry so that you can be like somebody else? Your focus is shifted on where you can get to. When you go in, you have babies in front of you. You have people who've been in prison. And you have people in all walks of life that you're gonna just step on them to get to where you're going.
Yep.
And you're not going to care for their soul adequately. Because if you adequately care for people's soul, I had one archbishop that I worked with who was so ambitious. It angered me to say, but I said it. And I said it in the conference in front of everybody. You have to watch out for people whose ambition and their ambitiousness, I said ambitious, you can tell a leader that's ambitious and an unfruitful leader that's ambitious because they may become malicious. When they start cutting you all to pieces and hurting you to get to where they're going. I said that, went all the way around to say that. That's very dangerous. And I said that in front of the whole national conference. Yeah. And we had addressed it personally, and it wasn't pretty. Yeah. And but you doing this to all of these people in here, it's my responsibility to say something. And I'm going to say something whether you like it or not. Yeah, I was offended, but that's what a pastor's call is, to defend God's flock against the wolves and the bears.
That's good. I know you made the statement about what the pastor said to you, and you have no idea who else may have been dealing with the same thing. And man, I'm trying to come and work on myself and get closer to God, and I have to. They making jokes about my struggles in the pulpit. Yes. And that can be a disconnect from people. And they like, you know what, that church hurt that you spoke about, because that gets deep for a lot of people.
It's the core.
It's the core. So it's very important, I think, to have that connection and the community that you speak about all the time, and the importance of it. So can you dig into that a little bit, the importance of the community when, you're going through your journey of healing and things like that?
I'm going to go back to the military from that side first.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take it back to family. No, I probably better go to family. The family is a unit. Family is probably the first place. I'm going to say it is the first place for a community. And in family, the way families should work, or can work, let's say can work is if the family has peace within the family and protection and shelter within the family. That's a community. And when people come outside of their family, they go into a world of all different type of things that can, events that can happen, and this disconnection, disorientation, all that. When we go into the military, or a person goes into, I think, nursing school or whatever career field, you normally go into some type of orientation program or group that you're working with, that you can talk to, you feel somewhat connected and as peers. For the military, after we got through basics, because basic training was to strip off people and take people out who couldn't handle and become a part of a unit, productive part of a unit. When I got to my first unit, we ran formation run, and we were calling cadence, and we were in sync. Yeah. In boot camp, by the time we got to second, third phase, we were in sync. It was like that unit, when the sergeant or staff sergeant gave a command, the unit turned. It's sharp, because we all working together. We all kind of thinking as one. When that's stripped away from a person for whatever reason, when a person is not in community, it could be very dangerous for a person. And that's in any walk of life. If you're not connected with somebody you can trust, 2 or 3, it can be very dangerous, because whether it's a spiritual enemy, whether it's a social enemy, whatever enemy that you perceive and interpret as an enemy,
Yeah.
a person could feel isolated. Now, going back to the group dynamic, going into a group that's you're connected with the same purpose that you agree on, the power of agreement, is super powerful. Because when you get that dynamic and that you forming, you get into that forming mode, you go to the storming mode. And this is a theory that we use in PTSD, clinical pastoral education. And that unit starts to gel and that forming, it's almost like we take on any enemy together.
Yes.
And that's that togetherness that when you ache or you hurt, you can talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
And the unit will rally around you and carry you and bring you along with us. And that's where going to having a safe place to settle in and find that identity for one, and then that joint call for two. And then it's like, nothing's going to stop us.
Yes.
That's just powerful.
That's right.
And my emotions are like, I'm excited because it's a great feeling to be a part of a unit.
That's right.
And just feel joint and connected. And yeah.
Now, I want to ask you this, speaking about community, and you spoke about family.
Yes.
And I know especially with veterans or just people with mental challenges in general and their families, I know we speak a lot about them, but we don't really speak about how it affects their families, their immediate family, their friend, and how it impacts them. Because we have veterans, they leave one way, especially those who have served overseas and been in combat. They've seen some things, experienced some things they can't even explain, don't know how to explain. Yeah. What do you say to those families? Because they're having to welcome their veteran home and they're noticing, hey, you know what? That's not the same person. What can they do to, one, I guess, be a support, but also to educate themselves on what that looks like?
So the first thing that dropped in my spirit, but is also a part of what happens with people when they leave the family, it could be a loss. Yeah. The family unit could feel like, I'm letting my baby go. I'm letting Shauna go. I'm letting her go. And when you get to the unit, you go through the process to become whatever it is, to shape and reshape and reorient and become. And then when you go back into that unit, they still feel a loss and that's one thing that a lot of people don't know, that there are a lot of losses. Death, and that's not the only loss. You're talking about a loss of the role in the family, the loss of what they brought, contributions. And so when you get ready to come back, they finally gonna come back.
Excited,
they're gonna come back. And they kind of expect
exactly
the same person coming back in. You've already been reshaped. You already saw some things over here. But when you leave, you experience the loss too. But over a period of time, going through the grooming process and the shaping process, it's like you've had to pack those losses way outside. I got to reorient and become. And a lot of people don't know about this too. Maybe know it, but unconsciously, is much of the training that people go into a new job and reorient themselves. It challenges a person basically to reform into who their assignment. I'm reforming to, I'm going to not reform, but I'm going to conform. Let's say conform, transform into a Marine, and shaking off and all that other stuff that's getting shaken off of me. Those are losses too that I have to deal with, and I have to find a way of adapting to the pain of losing a person or all that. I have to adapt to the pain. I have to find ways within my mind, my being. Dissociating, blocking it out, because most of the time military life shocks the what out of me. He's like, oh my God, this person's all up in my face. And so learning how to deal with that, cope with that, and then when that person goes on in the military and become a leader, and then they're looking at the orders that they get, and it's, oh my goodness, I had 30 other people, or however many people, or however this assignment. We're talking about in the military, you're dealing with millions of dollars of equipment. Learning how to deal with that and do that, it almost can seem impossible. And so by the time that person gets back to the family, they may have seen deaths, they may have been in near-death experiences, They have been trained to kill people. Yeah, come on, everybody in the Army is trained to kill people. That's one, not just Army, but armed forces.
Yes.
It's armed forces. It's trained to handle that business, to train to learn how to deal with global situations. It's a lot of training. So when and put in a new uniform when they get back home, to come back home in, and that person is completely, maybe not completely because you see the same face.
Yes.
But internally,
Yes.
the transformation that a person processed, that a person in the military or a police officer, nurse program, or any professional program, institutional program, even in the prison system. When a person comes back home, it may be hard to readjust back in the family system.
Yes.
I'm not Billy Boy anymore.
Yes.
I'm not Judy Girl anymore. I have gone through a lot. I can't even tell you about it. Don't want to talk about it. I just want to come home and I want to just rest. Lord, think about all the things that you had to deal with. I just want to rest. I don't want to talk. The friends, that other family.
Come on.
Oh, man.
Come on.
You talking about the basketball court that the goal broke out. And I'm like, man, I've been dealing with, I've been dealing pushing $1 million trucks or whatever. I'm in charge of 30 people that work on major aircraft material that I can't even talk about because of my clearance. So it's like a disconnection. And so even when a person is going back into the family system, they may feel such losses that they can't even express in the system, saying, I'm not the same person. You see the same person. I'm in the same core. But what is this little stuff you talking about?
It don't even matter.
And now I'm only here for 10 days and I want to go back to, I got to go, or I'm trying to reintegrate into the family system. It's like, I'm not going to ever fit into that system anymore. That's technically is really not my problem. I'm not going to make it my problem. And I hope you don't, and that may be the communication piece that families need to say, I accept that you're not going to make that. You're never going to be the same person again. So how can I learn how to value you where you are? And how can that may be a conversation that can help the families?
Yes. I think that's important because it's hard trying to, you've grown up fast. And especially if you left young, you've had to grow up very fast. So you're coming back home and reconnecting with your family. It's okay. Who is this person? I don't know. This person, it's not really the same. I mean, a little anger there, a little irritability there that didn't used to be there. So I definitely understand that. And I think that's a great conversation to have because it's important for families to, just for you to have that support of your family, but also for the family to be able to understand like what you're going through. I think that will help bridge that just for a better relationship.
Husband and wife relationship. The husband goes downfield. Look, I can't get the word because I got 3 or 4 thoughts in there. The wife may get assigned or mobilized. Let's use that word. Yeah, it shifts a lot in the family because depending on what the person that left out of the family, it may take a lot for them to try to work through the experiences that they had when they were downrange. And then to try to reintegrate back into the family, it could just be like, I can't even talk about the losses that I had there. And the pieces of me that are trying to, it might have been a 20-hour plane ride and then get on the bus and go to that little training that when they debrief us. But the amount of my heart and my spirit that's left back over there, it's going to take months. One of the things that the clinical pastoral education program and the chaplain service program at the VA did is we had what's called community clergy training, and the VA representatives and different representatives from the community that's got the training go out to the community and make it available for pastors and local churches, pastors and leaders to come to that training so that they can get a better understanding of how do you help families relate or sustain when their child goes to boot camp or when they go downrange or when they go mobilized to war. And then that can help the pastors and the church leaders develop programs within their church, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah. That's what I was listening to and was thinking and processing in my mind when you were talking. Because I'm like, that's the program that helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you know how few churches attend when we used to have these training conferences, how few pastors. We might have 100 churches in this region and 3 churches come. It's like, I'm trying to help you
Right.
be a better pastor and spiritual leader, but are you afraid to come because now you have to give up some control or you have to relearn things? I mean, what's going on? So yeah.
Wow. I think there's a big stigma, and I think with mental health. So I think that may play a huge role into it. Just lack of knowledge as well. Listen, I just have a couple more questions. Okay. If you had to name one mindset shift, one daily practice or a small action that could truly move the needle for someone that's listening, a veteran or anybody that's starting their journey to healing those things that are within. Okay. Because those are the most important things.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nothing external. What would it be?
You said daily practice?
Anything.
I'm going to go with, this is a challenge because I'm a pastor.
Wait.
I'm a Christian pastor. And I'm saying that from a sense of saying, I don't want to just say, well, if you go pray and go talk to Jesus every day, I don't want to just say that.
Hold on. That's important.
Right.
Let me, before you even say that, I'm glad you said that. Because a lot of the times I feel like we get that. Why don't you just go pray? Duh. Don't you think that's the first thing we did? I mean, and it's no disrespect to anybody.
That's an assumption. And what we learn in seminary is very good. Some people say it's cemetery, but no. Seminary is a program of helping pastors develop a plan to go back that's broader than just their local assembly, that's broad enough to develop and open their minds to God, the Almighty, that's broader than just me, looking at the Muslim or the atheist, that's broader than just the United States, is broad on the massiveness and expansion of the spiritual world, to come back to say, okay, I have to humble myself and be open to understand that I don't know everything.
Yes.
First of all. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Now, the humility piece of saying that as a person I'm created in a universe, and therefore I may need universal tools. Prayer may be one. I may try deep breathing. I'm working on deep breathing and meditation. And meditation for me is a spiritual tool. It's not just saying a prayer, and I'm working on mantras and I'm working on self-affirmation. And I'm going to say the one that right now that I'm feeling like it's the best for me is self-affirmation. And I have another one that deals with affirming the parts of my body. But self-affirmation for me may look like breathing, going outside in the morning, sitting still with grounding myself, feet flat on the ground, allowing myself to just take some breaths in, breathe in for about 3 seconds, or breathe in 3 seconds. And then just sit with that, hold that for 3 seconds. Breathe out for 3 seconds. When I'm breathing out, I'm releasing pain, any self-hatred or self-judgment. I'm just releasing that. I'm going to sit still for a minute after I breathe out. I'm going to do that process again for a few minutes. In that amount of time, and within my mind, I'm allowing myself to value myself as a person, to value myself, whatever state I'm in, whether as a with PTSD or emotional problems, I'm learning to just release those and breathe in hope or joy or love. And I'm doing that process every day. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to do it. But as that build up, think about how many times you can say to yourself, I'm amazing.
Yes.
When you think about your life, to get to a place where if you're a mother, you're amazing. If you're a father, you're amazing. I mean, you brought a life into this world that you can shape. If you're a carpenter, you're amazing. Look at your contributions, and you speak, after you get out of that grounding process, you speak the words.
Yeah.
That, man, look at my story. man, look at the things I did. I graduated high school. I got a driver's license. And you start celebrating all the way down to the core of who you are. Just celebrate.
Yeah.
Even though my brain is maybe a little bit in my own mind, I can empty the trash.
Yeah.
Or learn to celebrate yourself. That's also called self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Self-evaluation and self-affirmation, because anyone else, but again, is your body, soul, and spirit.
Yes.
It's your journey. And so when you start going back to Forrest Gump, when Jenny told Forrest to run and Forrest started running and he broke the shackles off, the bracelets off.
Yep.
If you think about one thing that you do and you do exceedingly well, and I'm not saying go try to make a book or $1 million out of it, but if you celebrate that and build yourself up, build your confidence, rebuild your faith, hope will come.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you provide the people with some resources that they can use, some tools that you may have for them? We're definitely going to put the link in if you have any PDFs or anything for them.
Okay. So one of the greatest things that I've been using, and I want to go back, this is my dissertation, and it's some here that I really don't want to butcher, because I'm just going to be honest. My brain this has been a lot for me. And the ministry that I do is so much more deeper than in depth from who I am as a person, that even though I went through the studies, it's deep. And one of the things I really want to encourage a person to do is read the book that Viktor Frankl wrote. And I know the name of it, but I don't want to butcher it. I want to give you the right name. Man's Search for Meaning. And it was written by Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist, and he went through the incineration in World War II, the concentration camps, where every day he faced death, whether he was going to live or die. But he never lost hope, in the sense of saying he had a reason to live and a reason to be. And that's super important, because regardless of what you're going through, making meaning of suffering is important. That's another one. Let's see, that I want to read. The Power of Presence, helping people help people. Listening is super important. The power of presence is the power of who you are and your ability to, first of all, take the time to listen to your own inner hurts, your own inner wounds, and then find a safe place. You could talk to that plant. If you're saying good words to the plant, it's probably going to live. But if you say negative words, but when you hear yourself and you listening to yourself, that deep place, and you find hope within you, say that.
Yeah.
Write that down, because you are a powerful person. I'm going to go with it and say God, the Almighty, the creator of the universe. But for people who don't believe in that religion, you are here now, and you're valuable now as you are. And so that book is another one. And other resources is, if you get an opportunity to be in a spirituality group anywhere, that means you probably want to make sure they're like-minded people, same belief system, faith system, and you can deal with that so that you can be open, because it's important for you to be open. And that's important. And it doesn't have to be a spiritual support group. It could be, I'll just say, the American Vets Post that I'm in, American Vets Post 227 and Vets Post 227, where people accept you as you are and want to see you excel, rise to and be the best you can be. And once you get in those groups like that, those 3 things I think are very important and have had a significant change in my life. But the 4th would be, as you see what your passion is, whether it's art or music, whether it's being a photographer, allow yourself to pour yourself into that if it gives you peace. Yeah. Because that can connect you to your hope and your joy in life.
That's good. I like that. Thank you so much, Chap, for being here with me today. This was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it was.
I really appreciate you.
I agree, Rashawn. You have a way of, I say inviting way, but listening is what I heard most. And you listen And when we were doing reflective listening, active listening, reflective listening, it helped me see some things. It invited me to a place that's deeper and broader, also deeper, but also higher. So, excellent job.
I appreciate that, Chap. Thank you.
You probably might not even see that yourself, how you do that.
Yeah,
you invite people that, and then that helps people excel. Woo,
Thank you. I
woo,
appreciate
woo.
that. I really do. Thank you so much for being here.
Hallelujah.
I just pray the conversation today can definitely give somebody some hope, give tools and that they could use. So how can they get in touch with you? How can the people get in touch?
Wow. I have, as you can see, I'm a busy person, but the busyness is good.
Yes.
One of the best ways to contact me is through email, chaplainal@hotmail.com. Wave International Ministries, welcome, accepting, and valuing, and empowering, is our nonprofit organization. Our phone number is 252-364-7929. And we recently changed that phone number. We also have an office in Greenville, but chaplainal@hotmail.com, I check that daily. And that phone number, you can call me or text me. When I'm in the office, I have that phone. Normally I have that phone, and it's okay. I just say, don't get discouraged when you're reaching out to people, because sometimes the delay is meaningful. The delay could be really what you need and what that person needs. And if you're dangling on the rope, you can always call 988, and that's a hotline, especially for vets. If you call that hotline, you're going to talk to a person, and that's going to activate the process of you getting help. 988. It's also for if a person is feeling suicidal awareness, thoughts, ideations, 988, and get the help that you need, because there's a chaplain on that team and there's other providers on that team.
Okay, so this is the final thing here. So I want you to close us out with some words of wisdom.
Search yourself, the depth of you. Before you experienced the trauma, who were you? And celebrate yourself that you went through the trauma, you made it through the trauma. And so once you celebrate yourself, activate yourself, the self to you that found the resilience to make it through, to overcome, to bounce back through the trauma, to be where you are now. And where you are now, activate yourself, mash the gas pedal, and start moving. If you move, baby steps. If you're low crawling, low crawl to that place that you feel like you feel the most passion or energy toward, especially if it's helpful. If it's not helpful, go back and redo it again until you see that helpful place that you're going to.
That's right. Well, I can't close it any better than that. Thank you so much, Chap.
Amen.
And thank you guys for watching.